Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General, thanks for your testimony. I appreciate you coming here. And I recall a previous exchange in a previous hearing and between us. And I believe I asked a question to the effect of, are your priorities, are they directed by the President into your office, or are you an independent department? And I believe your response was generally, I'm independent. I don't take direct direction from the President, and it's your job to provide equal justice under the law. That'd be generally the response that I recall, and I know you're nodding your head in relative agreement.
I was just thinking, I've been here too long. You guys can quote too many things that I've said previously, you know. But that's I think that's right. That's right.
Well, and I want to make sure I represent it accurately. I think that's an appropriate response as well.
That's fine. That's fine.
And so I'd like to just go through a list of some of the things that pop into my head that I'm thinking about here. One of them is relatively new. It's been back in the news fairly recently, and that's the Senator Ted Stevens issue. And I understand that prosecution took place before you took office, but it's been reported as recently as March that an FBI agent was severely disciplined and that the discipline was imposed for improper actions in the investigation and prosecution of Senator Ted Stevens. Now, I think it's clear that it's very likely he lost his Senate seat over that investigation, over that conviction, and then subsequently was killed in a plane crash. That's one piece about the discipline within the FBI that I'd like to hear about. Second is the overreach by allegedly Carmen Ortiz in the case of Aaron Swartz, who committed suicide. Third one would be, we've seen as the knockout game has been reported, at least in the news, to be primarily black on white crime. I don't know of any prosecutions there except for the federal investigation and prosecution of Conrad Barrett, who was the anomaly, as far as I'm reading the news, as a white on black crime of the knockout game. Next, Dinesh D'Souza allegedly transferred $20,000 that showed up in a U.S. Senate campaign targeted for this investigation. I would presume there are thousands in America who are likely engaged in similar acts and unprosecuted. Governor Bob McDonnell, for the charges brought against him, now 5 former U.S. attorneys general have come out for Virginia and said they think this is overreach and outside the definition of the law. And then I'm thinking about Governor Chris Christie, who, when the situation of the bridge, or known as Bridgegate, came up, within a week, there were federal investigators investigating the Hurricane Sandy issue. Now, that's just things that I put down here while I'm sitting here listening to the testimony. Here's the other side. Black Panther's prosecution canceled about the time you took office. Tom Perez, say Assistant Attorney General at the time, now Secretary of Labor, sat just nearly where you are and said he'd provided the lowest penalty allowable under law. We know that wasn't true. It was the smallest de minimis penalty provided under law. You've heard Jim Sensenbrenner bring up the James Clapper issue in his testimony, the conflicting testimony under oath. I'm thinking of another governor, Governor John Corzine, $1 billion missing in Global Crossing. I don't know of a prosecution there that's taking place. Lois Lerner, I think she would be a candidate. Then I'm thinking of entire classes of people that have been exempted by this administration, down to the point of, I understand this is immigration enforcement. However, 99.92% of those who have been removed aren't removed because they're unlawfully present. Only 0.08% are, for that narrow little reason, because classes of people have been created by this administration, exempted from the law, at least in fact. And then marijuana companies exempted from enforcement of the law, as well as essentially a suspension of the federal enforcement of marijuana laws. We've talked about DOMA. I take us to voter fraud and the Texas issue, where Texas says, I want a voter ID. They get labeled as a poll tax and a racist plot. My question really is, have you prosecuted anyone in this administration? Have you impaneled a grand jury? Have you investigated anyone in this administration? Because it looks to me that those folks that are on the other side of the aisle are getting extra scrutiny, and those on your side of the aisle are getting no scrutiny.
First, I'm not going to comment on any cases that are pending, and I will simply say that we have followed the facts and the law in making our prosecutive determinations and making our investigatory decisions. This is an administration, this is a Justice Department that I have run that I'm proud of. The men and women who are the career employees or who are in the department for lesser periods of time make their decisions based only on the facts and the law and conduct themselves in the way that is in the best traditions of this department. And I'll stand, put my record up against any other Attorney General, any other Justice Department, and any hint that we have engaged in anything that is partisan or inappropriate in nature, I totally 1,000% reject.
But you haven't really responded to the question of whether you've investigated or indicted a member of the administration. That would be an unresponsive response,
King,
I would assert.
yeah, time has expired. Thank you.